Our 10th anniversary party was being held alongside my wife's company's annual celebration, making it one large event filled with coworkers, friends, and family. My wife, Victoria, spent nearly the entire evening laughing beside her ex-boyfriend, who had recently joined the company as a senior executive. She barely spoke to me except to remind me not to embarrass her by acting jealous. I quietly smiled and enjoyed conversations with guests who actually acknowledged I was there. Victoria believed I was simply another supportive husband in the crowd. She had no idea the evening was about to change in a way neither of them expected. As dinner came to an end, the host stepped onto the stage and asked everyone for their attention. Victoria was still standing beside her ex, smiling as they finished another conversation. Then the host looked directly toward me. "Before we continue," he announced, "we have one very special surprise tonight." The room grew quiet. "Please welcome the man who has just finalized the acquisition of our company and will officially become its new owner." Hundreds of eyes turned in my direction. Victoria's smile disappeared instantly. Her ex slowly looked at me, the color draining from his face as he realized exactly who I was. For a few seconds, no one applauded because everyone seemed too stunned to react. Then the room erupted into cheers as I walked toward the stage. Victoria stood frozen beside her ex, unable to process what she had just heard. She had always believed I worked quietly as an investor, but never bothered asking what projects occupied my time. Her assumptions had replaced curiosity long ago. The host shook my hand and congratulated me before passing over the microphone. Looking across the ballroom, I noticed Victoria avoiding my eyes for the first time all evening. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone. I thanked everyone for the warm welcome and spoke briefly about the company's future, making it clear that every employee would continue to be evaluated on merit, professionalism, and teamwork. I deliberately avoided mentioning anything personal. When I finished, the audience applauded again. As I stepped down from the stage, Victoria hurried toward me. "Michael, why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. I answered honestly, "You stopped asking about my life a long time ago." She looked away, realizing how often our conversations had become one-sided. She had shared every detail about work while barely showing interest in mine. Later that evening, Victoria found me standing alone on the balcony overlooking the city. The laughter from the ballroom echoed softly behind us. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I never meant to make you feel invisible." I looked at her calmly before replying, "Tonight wasn't painful because of your ex. It was painful because my own wife treated me like I didn't matter." Tears filled her eyes as she realized the promotion announcement wasn't what had changed the evening. It had simply exposed how differently we had been treating each other long before anyone handed me the microphone or announced the acquisition. Victoria stood silently for several moments before whispering, "Nothing happened between us. We were only talking." I nodded. "This was never just about whether you crossed the line with him," I replied. "It was about choosing to spend our anniversary making your husband feel like an afterthought." She looked back through the ballroom doors where guests were still celebrating. For the first time that evening, she seemed to understand how lonely I had felt while watching her laugh with someone else. Recognition replaced defensiveness, but it arrived only after the damage had already been done. The following morning, Victoria apologized again, this time without excuses. She admitted she had become so focused on her career and the attention she received at work that she stopped noticing how distant our marriage had become. "I kept assuming you'd always," she said. I answered gently, "Understanding isn't the same as feeling valued." Those words ended the conversation. She finally realized the issue wasn't jealousy. It was neglect. I had spent months quietly supporting her ambitions while slowly disappearing from her priorities. The anniversary party simply revealed what had already been happening behind closed doors for far too long. Over the next several weeks, we made one important decision. Before discussing our future together, we would honestly decide whether both of us were still willing to choose the marriage every single day. We attended counseling, changed old routines, and spent more time talking without phones or work interruptions. Rebuilding trust wasn't about dramatic promises. It was about consistently showing up for each other in ordinary moments. Whether our marriage ultimately survived depended not on one party or one announcement, but on whether we could replace assumptions with attention and restore the respect that had quietly faded over time. Looking back, friends often assumed the biggest surprise that night was discovering I had become the company's new owner. They were wrong. The biggest surprise was watching Victoria realize that success and status had never been the point. She thought my silence came from insecurity. In reality, it came from disappointment. I never wanted recognition from a microphone. I wanted acknowledgement from my wife. The business announcement lasted only a few minutes. The lesson it revealed about our relationship stayed with both of us much longer. Sometimes the loudest applause cannot hide the quietest loneliness inside a marriage. Years later, I rarely think about the acquisition or the applause that followed the announcement. What I remember most is the conversation on the balcony after the crowd disappeared. That night reminded me that relationships don't usually fail because of one dramatic moment. They weaken through countless small moments when people stop making each other feel seen. Whether two people rebuild after that depends on the choices they make afterward, not the surprise that exposed the problem. Becoming the company's new owner changed my career. Realizing how invisible I had become changed the way I understood love, partnership, and what truly matters.